What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. On today's show, UNLV lost their quarterback in the transfer portal, but Dan Mullen can probably figure out the most important position. UNLV basketball also beat up on an NAIA school yesterday, and the Golden Knights got smacked again. I promised you yesterday some UNLV football because Anthony Colandrea is in the transfer portal, or will be in the transfer portal when it officially opens on January 2nd. That's according to Pete Thamel. The problem here is that Anthony Colandrea very specifically said he wasn't going into the transfer portal. Back on December 15th, before UNLV's bowl game, Colandrea, who was the best quarterback in the group of five this year. South Florida's Byron Brown was really good, so there's some argument there. But if there was just a group of five Heisman, Colandrea would have at the very least been the finalist that gets to go to New York. He was excellent this year for UNLV. He had one of the best seasons any UNLV quarterback has ever had. He was awesome, right? But on December 15th, before UNLV's bowl game, Colandrea said, "I'm not transferring. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. I just want to play in the bowl game and finish out the year with the guys." Technically, he did say he just wanted to finish out the year. Maybe he said he wasn't transferring until after the bowl game. But he also did give another quote about not chasing money, and all he needed was Dan Mullen. So, 9 days later, he's in the transfer portal, or says he's going to enter the transfer portal. And I said this back on December 15th when Colandrea said that he wasn't transferring, that, it's nice to hear the commitment, but the transfer portal doesn't open until January 2nd. And a lot changes in college football, and a lot changes quickly. Somehow Kyle Whittingham's now the coach at Michigan. A lot changes. And for a player that is in the perfect scenario to go into the transfer portal, to say 2 weeks before, almost 3 weeks before, the portal opens, to say, "I'm not transferring," doesn't necessarily mean anything. Because as we saw between December 15th and the opening date of the transfer portal on January 2nd, something changed for Anthony Colandrea, right? And that's pretty obvious. We've already seen it with UNLV and Jaden Mayava a few years ago, right? So it's not like UNLV is even new to this scenario. So I think there was a premature victory lap from UNLV fans about Colandrea coming back. And I tried to tell you to calm down a little bit, but he's in the transfer portal. And the issue, though, isn't about Colandrea going into the portal, because I'll be honest, from what I've seen from UNLV fans, I haven't seen one UNLV fan actually mad at Colandrea for being in the portal. I think most people understand Anthony Colandrea at a group of five program had an unbelievable year, and mid-tier to bottom-tier power conference teams can get that type of player more NIL money than UNLV. So him entering the portal and leaving UNLV after 1 year, I haven't seen any UNLV fans that are actually mad at him for that. The problem is that just like Jaden Mayava a couple of years ago, Colandrea said he was coming back. And now he's in the portal. And I've seen a few people ask this question, and I haven't come up with a good answer. But it's like, if you're Anthony Colandrea, why say you're coming back? What good does it do to say, yes, I'm coming back, when he should know, too, that things can change before the portal opens, or whoever is advising him, right? There's an agency involved. He has a new agency that he signed with in December. And I get, you get asked the question directly, "Hey, are you transferring?" And it's hard to say, "Well, we'll address that at the end of the year." It's hard to give a non-answer to that type of question. But he had a lot of flourish. He had a lot of flourish when he said he wasn't transferring. He was very adamant that he wasn't in it for the money. He just needed Dan Mullen. And there's just, at this stage, there's no reason as a college player, honestly, to ever say that. I mean, at any school. I mean, Carson Beck left Georgia to go to Miami. So, there's there's not a lot of reason to just be like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere, never going anywhere. Like, things happen in a hurry in this sport, and for players, it's probably better to just not say, I'm for sure coming back. Hell, even in the middle of the season, I don't even know if I'd say I'm coming back for next week, because that can change too, as UNLV's seen with Matthew Sluka. Talked about this a couple of times already in the month of December, but it sucks. I mean, this is the reality for college football teams, and especially group of 5 teams, that you can lose your best players after 1 year. It is absolutely a 1-year setup for college sports right now if you're at the group of 5. And honestly, if you're at most Power 5s too. But if you're at the group of 5, which I guess I got to call the group of 6 now, this is the reality. You get a good season out of a player, and that might be it. And we heard Jeff Choate, the head coach at Nevada, talk about how they kind of recruit that way, that they say, hey, we've had a player leave, go to Oregon and get $1.4 million in NIL money. We have players that leave and use us as a stepping stone. So come here, use us as a stepping stone, and you could go somewhere and get $1 million in NIL money. So Nevada's head coach is using that publicly. He's telling us, like, this is what we do. This is how we recruit. And it's the reality for all group of 5 programs. I mean, UNLV doesn't have any like history here, but over the last 3 years, UNLV's been one of the 5 best group of 5 programs, right? If you were looking for, well, where can I go to win at the group of 5, UNLV right now might be one of the top 10 you choose. And Colandrea just did it. They just won 10 games, and he was awesome. He has proof of concept that he can be the guy and do it. And he leaves because that's what this is. And for the players, it's great because they are getting this bump in pay and they're able to do it immediately. And specifically for a player like Anthony Colandrea, he's gonna make more money next year in NIL than he probably will the rest of his football career. Right? Like, Anthony Colandrea does not have professional prospects. He absolutely should be going to whatever school is offering him the most money, because that's the only money he's ever going to make playing football. And so for the players, all of this is good. All of this is a positive where they can cash in for the 4 years or 5 years or however many years of eligibility you're going to get in the future playing college football. But it sucks so much for fans. It is terrible for fans because, like, if you're a UNLV fan, Colandrea was good and Colandrea was so much fun to watch. I mean, just on the entertainment value, Colandrea was worthwhile, let alone that he was actually good and UNLV won 10 games. And you get 1 year of it and then he's gone. Like, it just sucks for fans. It's terrible for fans that you have to learn a whole new roster every single year. It's terrible. I don't know how you fix it. I've said before, like, surely there's going to be contracts that come into college athletics that we're going to have players that out of high school or out of a transfer portal sign. But even then, a lot of guys are probably going to sign 1-year contracts. Hell, a lot of teams are only going to want to sign guys to 1-year contracts. In the scholarship era before NIL, we saw coaches kicking guys out who were on scholarship. You get to the end of the year and it's like, oh, there's a lot of transfers even when they're before NIL and transfer portal. And it's like, well, yeah, the coaches are telling them to leave because they didn't think that player was good enough. So coaches and teams are going to want to sign 1-year contracts too. So I don't even know if contracts really fix that problem. Now, looking ahead for UNLV, what do they do at quarterback? Alex Orji said that he is coming back. He told the Review Journal this month, right now I'm planning on being a Rebel next year. It's been great being here. And that was actually before the news of Colandrea going into the portal. Maybe he already knew, but that was before Colandrea entered the transfer portal or said he was entering the transfer portal. He only threw 3 passes this year. So I don't know how confident you should be or how confident Dan Mullen would be going into next season there. Maybe you go into the transfer portal for a new quarterback. That's probably the right way to approach it because you're losing your quarterback in the transfer portal. You just had success with getting one out of the portal. That's probably the right way to do it and find another one. And, multiple, I should say. The most important thing, I think, for every program to do is go get multiple quarterbacks. Good. I don't care that one of them's not going to. If things go well, one of them doesn't play. Absolutely. If things go well, you go get a starting level, Mountain West starting level transfer quarterback. Things go well, he doesn't play because the other one you got is awesome and plays the whole year. But you go get multiple. Absolutely. So they should be, even if Colandrea was coming back, they should have been in the portal looking for a quarterback. But with Colandrea gone, they need to go get probably 2 quarterbacks. And because, like, how many times does UNLV have an opening day starter and then go to number 2 because of injuries or bad play? All the time. Hell, how many times is the opening day starter just not as good as the backup? We've seen that a ton. So they need to get multiple quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Now, I will give you my optimism on this situation for UNLV. And it's solely based on Dan Mullen and his past, because Dan Mullen has done an excellent job with quarterbacks, right? Early in his career, he was following Urban Meyer around. Was first a quarterbacks coach under Urban Meyer, then was an offensive coordinator, under Urban Meyer. And if you go through at Utah, they had Alex Smith. At Florida, when Dan Mullen was not the head coach, when he was the coordinator, they had Chris Leak, who had very good seasons, and then Tim Tebow. Then Dan Mullen became the head coach at Mississippi State, and they had some good quarterback seasons, but the obvious one there is Dak Prescott, was awesome. He goes back to Florida as a head coach. That's probably the worst stretch of quarterback play that he's had, but they still had Kyle Trask, and Kyle Trask had a really, really good season at Florida under Dan Mullen. And then obviously this past season at UNLV, Anthony Colandrea was spectacular. So whether Dan Mullen's been quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, or head coach, pretty much everywhere he's been, they've produced good quarterback play. Obviously, Alex Smith and Dak Prescott were NFL level talents, and I'm not expecting UNLV to bring that in. But Chris Leak wasn't this NFL talent. Kyle Trask is in the NFL, but is not like, oh my God, unbelievable there. And I don't think Colandrea is going to the NFL. So he's done it with guys that are NFL talents, but also done it with guys that are not going to be these NFL starting quarterbacks. So he has shown us in his career that he can get good quarterback play. And UNLV's schedule next year is pretty easy. It's going to be pretty easy. So even if UNLV's quarterback isn't that good, the opponents are not going to be that good. So getting quality or competent quarterback play against their schedule, it should be a little easier than what Dan Mullen has had to do in the past, whether it's been at Florida or Mississippi State or Utah. So I actually have some optimism that Dan Mullen will have this position figured out for next season, just because he's done that throughout his career more often than not. Possible for him to miss and they have a bad year and there's no quarterback play. Absolutely. No doubt about it. But what we've seen from him in his career is good quarterback. So he'll probably do it again. One other thing on UNLV football. So they played in the Frisco Bowl, and that was played at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility. And it still blows me away that they had to go play in some NFL team's practice facility where they didn't even paint a logo on the field. They just played with the Cowboys midfield logo and Cowboys in the end zone. I still can't get over that, right? Like New Mexico and San Diego State got to go play in real bowl games, but not UNLV. They go play in a practice facility over the Cowboys logos. But there were 2 bowl games in the Cowboys practice facility. They weren't even the only ones. UNLV played Ohio, obviously, and the week before was the Xbox Bowl between Missouri State and Arkansas State. So this practice facility holds 12,000 fans. UNLV's game against Ohio, they drew 6,500. That was the announced attendance, roughly half of that facility's capacity. And it was probably the right size place to play the bowl game between UNLV and Ohio. But Arkansas State and Missouri State, in the same building a week earlier, drew 7,700 fans, 1,200 more fans than UNLV and Ohio. And I think this is a part of UNLV football's attractiveness that never really gets brought up. The fan base isn't there. UNLV doesn't have a fan base. Like, yes, 30,000 people will go watch them play important games at Allegiant Stadium, but UNLV's bowl game drew fewer fans than Arkansas State and Missouri State. And you can make excuses, right? UNLV's was right before Christmas. Arkansas is much closer to Dallas than Las Vegas, but you can't get outdrawn by Arkansas State and Missouri State and try to have a claim to joining a power conference. And I think this is part of the problem for UNLV football. Who cares about UNLV football? There is not a big enough fan base that actually cares about watching UNLV football. And when we talk about, television and markets and attractiveness and all of this, UNLV doesn't own the Las Vegas market. Like if the Big 12 added UNLV and they were like, we want the Las Vegas market, I don't even think they're getting it because who's watching it? Not that many people. So I think this is one of the problems UNLV runs into is they just do not have this big fan base that's willing to support UNLV football. That's like, oh, sweet, we're going to the Frisco Bowl. We're going, right? We're going to show up and go to the Frisco Bowl. Nobody showed up and went to the Frisco Bowl. Missouri State and Arkansas State outdrew them. So I think that's one of the issues for UNLV is that just that fan base isn't there. And when you look at these, if you look at the program and say, hey, what do we get out of UNLV if we add them to the Big 12 or the ACC or whatever conference you think they're going to join? This is a big negative because you're not getting a fan base. You're not getting a built-in, hey, these are the people that care about us or care about the team, I should say, and are now going to care about our football games and our conference. It just isn't there. All right. Coming up next, we're going to get into Bischoff's briefs. We've got a lot to get to this week, a condensed week of shows, but still a lot happening. So coming up next, it's Bischoff's briefs. UNLV beat La Sierra 89-47. That is an NAIA school. UNLV led this game 21-0. 6 minutes and 38 seconds into the game. 21-0. Somehow La Sierra got to 47 points after that. You give up a 21-0 run to start the game and you still get to 47. So actually kind of impressive they got to 47. That game was a listless blowout win. I don't have a whole lot from UNLV's actual performance. I do have some things for you, obviously, but they're mostly not like how well UNLV played. First off, one of the more interesting things to me is Josh Pastner's starting lineup. He did not have Emmanuel Steffen or Isaac Williamson in the lineup. Again, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, Howie Fleming were the only two guards, and then Tyron Jones, Kamani Hamilton, and Jacob Benarbi were the three forwards in there. So what I find funny about it is the many, many times we heard the excuses, and hell, I think I made some of them, that, UNLV doesn't have Emmanuel Steffen to start the year. He's hurt. And Miles Che, but they don't have Emmanuel Steffen. They're 7-foot center. It's part of the reason why UNLV is so bad. They lost all these centers. They had so many injuries at center. So Tyron Jones and Jacob Benarbi had to play out of position at center. And now Emmanuel Steffen's coming off the bench to Jacob Benarbi and Tyron Jones. So he's not any good? He's not an excuse for why you weren't playing? A backup center's no reason to use as an excuse that, we didn't have our backup center, and that's why we lost the game to Tennessee State. That's not reality. That's not how that works. So I find that pretty funny that we're at this point. I still assume, though, Emmanuel Steffen is going to be part of UNLV's best lineup this season. I still think that. But right now, Josh Pastner isn't showing us that. Pastner's showing us that he's not a part of their best lineup, or at least the lineup that Pastner wants on the floor the most. So we'll see as the season goes. But right now, we're having, one of those excuses that Pastner could use is kind of blowing up right now because he's not even starting the guy. Also, if you listen to the show on Monday, La Sierra has a 7'3" center. There's an NAI school out here with a 7'3" center in Jasper Reynalda. Disappointing. He only attempted one shot in the game. He did take 4 free throws. He made 2 of them. He's a 35% shooter from the free throw line. A little higher now, but he's a 35% free throw shooter. Only took 4. And honestly, he didn't look that bad shooting them. Like, this wasn't like I get why he's only made 35%. He looked like he was fine shooting free throws. But his defense was hilarious because he doesn't leave the paint, right? He doesn't even leave the rim. He just stands in the restricted area, the arc right there under the basket. He just stands there. He doesn't leave. And Emmanuel Steffen, who was being guarded by him, he attempted a 3 because of this. because Reynalda is standing at the rim. Stefan has the ball at the top of the key, and nobody's within 10 feet of him. So he just shoots a three. Missed it horribly. Terrible miss there. But I was hoping 7'3" guy at an NAIA school would be fun. It wasn't. There wasn't much there. He was just slow getting up and down the floor. Like, that's really all that it was. Couldn't get good positioning on UNLV's bigs. Like, it wasn't fun. I was hoping for some more interesting things there from Jasper Reynalda. So disappointed. Also, by the way, UNLV shot 6-24 from three against an NAIA school. They can't shoot from three. If you needed a good example of three-point defense not being real, don't worry. I'll get into that during the college basketball season because three-point defense is not real. But this game as a whole, why? Why did UNLV play an NAIA school at the end of December before all their Mountain West schedule comes in? Like, I'm pretty sure they'd have been better off just scrimmaging themselves. Even if they don't have 10 players, just play 3-on-3. Like, what was that? Like, that was pointless. Like, UNLV didn't get anything out of that game. They got to win, but who cares? We're not looking back and saying, oh, one more win for Passner this year. It's going to be a bad season no matter what. I don't know. It just seems like, why'd you do that? That seems completely pointless. Maybe, post-Christmas, we really want to get a game in, so we're not rusty when we take on Air Force, I guess, but that was stupid. And because I looked this up, it didn't happen, but I looked this up, and it's a positive Marvin Menzies stat. I thought UNLV was going to score 100 points yesterday. They didn't. Had they scored 100 points, it would have been 2 games this year with 100 points. And it would have been the first time since 2017-18 that UNLV scored 100 points in 2 games in the same season. So Marvin Menzies is the last coach to do that. There's a positive Menzies stat. There's not many of them out there, but I got you one. Also, there was a story in the Review Journal over the weekend that Allegiant Stadium is going to try to fix their terrible sound. If you have been to Allegiant Stadium, you probably know this, but the sound there is horrendous, right? I've been there in the press box. I've sat in the lower bowl and I've sat in the upper bowl as a fan at events. Been behind the end zones, been on the sidelines, been in the corners. I've been to a couple concerts. I've been to soccer games. I've been to football games. The sound sucks there. It is unbelievable how bad the sound is everywhere. There's apparently like 1 or 2 places where it's like, oh, the sound's pretty good. But the amount of times that I've been to a game and you can't understand the PA announcement. You can't understand the MC they have on the field for timeouts and stuff, or the over the intercom sound that's being played in there. It's unbelievable. And for a concert, oh my God, it sucks. The whole point of going to a concert is to hear. And the sound is terrible. God, it's awful. Like, it's honestly embarrassing that we gave $750 million to build this stadium, and the sound is that bad. But after 6 years, apparently they're going to try to fix it. Now it's in their 2 to 3 year time span here to fix it. So it's not going to be fixed very soon. And we'll see if they can even fix it well, because why wasn't this considered when they constructed the damn place? Hey, maybe it'd be good if people could hear things when they come to Allegiant Stadium. I cannot believe how bad it is. It pisses me off so much, right? How terrible the sound is. But hopefully they fix it and you can go to concerts there or just hear the damn PA announcer when you go to a sporting event. For the Raiders, with 1 week left, Geno Smith has an ankle injury. He left Sunday's game with that injury, which gave us a quarter of Kenny Pickett. A little weird, Pete Carroll on Sunday said Geno Smith had a high ankle sprain. Then yesterday when Pete Carroll talked to the media, he said, it's not a high ankle sprain. It's just a normal ankle sprain, but it's significant. And Carroll said that it would be hard for Geno Smith to play this week. So it certainly sounds like Geno Smith is not going to play. And there's real questions about, is Geno Smith done as a Raider, right? He next year, $18.5 million goes to Geno Smith. $18.5 million is going to count against the cap. No matter what with Geno Smith. They technically can spread that out over 2 years against the cap if they want to, but Geno Smith is going to get paid some money from the Raiders even if they get rid of him. The key date here is the 3rd day of the league season. So when the offseason officially starts, when we get 3 days in, Geno Smith has $8 million more that becomes guaranteed. So there's a pretty obvious cut date there for Geno Smith, that they're going to cut him before that third day. He has the most interceptions in the NFL. He's been sacked the most. It's been an unbelievably bad season. Not all his fault. Offensive line has been atrocious, but Geno Smith has been terrible. Even with built-in excuses, Geno Smith has been unbelievably bad. And it's probably safe to assume he's played his last game as a Raider, because it doesn't look like he's going to play this weekend, and it's hard to envision that he's going to come back next season, especially when the Raiders are going to be in position to draft a quarterback in the first round. You're probably just going to pay Geno Smith to go away. You're probably going to give him the $18.5 million and send him on his way. Also for the Raiders, because I didn't get to this yesterday, but Michael Mayer, he had 9 catches for 89 yards against the Giants. And Michael Mayer, as a tight end, has shown flashes like this before. He's had some availability issues throughout his career, so we haven't gotten consistent playing time from Michael Mayer. And then they drafted Brock Bowers, who plays tight end, and he got pushed down the depth chart. But he had a really good game. And after the game, Pete Carroll got asked, basically, why did it take so long for Michael Mayer to be a part of the offense? And Pete Carroll said Brock Bowers. And then specifically said, you can't throw to tight ends 20 times in a game. First off, why not? Throwing it to worse players just because they play wide receiver should probably not be happening. But this is a perfect example of how the Raiders have completely butchered draft value throughout the years. Yes, this was done over 3 different general manager head coach combos, right? Pete Carroll did not draft Michael Mayer. Pete Carroll did not draft Brock Bowers, right? That was 2 completely different regimes. But as an organization, the Raiders drafted Michael Mayer, a tight end, in the 2nd round in 2023. The very next year, they drafted Brock Bowers, another tight end, in the 1st round. Using 2 top 40 picks at the tight end position in back-to-back years is horrible asset management. It is not a premium position. It's not like defensive end where you need to have 2 good defensive ends. You do not need 2 good tight ends in the NFL. Hell, you don't even need 1 tight end as good as Brock Bowers to win. And yet the Raiders decided that they were going to use 2 high picks on tight ends in 2 years. And then we fast forward to Pete Carroll saying, well, you basically can't use 2 tight ends. You can't throw to 2 tight ends in a game. That would be stupid. We can't do that. And that's an example of how the Raiders have managed to blow this. Yes, a lot of the time since they've been in Vegas, they've simply drafted bad players. Like, that's obviously happened a lot. John Gruden's era, they had so many first-round picks, they didn't even draft good players. But they also show us over and over with different regimes that they don't understand value. Drafting a running back in the top 10 is dumb, but they did it last year. Drafting a tight end in the 1st round when you have 20 holes is stupid. It's even dumber when you took a tight end in the 2nd round last year and tight end wasn't a hole. So this organization, through different regimes, has showed us they don't understand value. And fortunately, they're going to be forced into taking a quarterback because the quarterback play was so bad and they have a high pick. They're going to, I feel confident they're going to do it. But it's just, there's just very little reason to believe the Raiders are actually going to do well in the draft because we just haven't seen them do it across many, many iterations, many, many regimes. So this is another example of how bad they've actually been. Last thing in Bischoff's briefs today, looking across the division for the Raiders, Andy Reid is not planning to retire. He got asked about that, and he said, I think I'm coming back, right? If they'll have me back, I'll come back. You never know in this business. That's a tough one, but I plan on it. Yeah. So Andy Reid's a little bit older, has had a lot of success. I think if it were normal people, there would be, why don't I walk away right now? I don't need to work anymore. I've got plenty of money. But there are some reasons for Andy Reid to come back. First off, Patrick Mahomes is still alive. Second off, he has 3 years left on his contract that pays him $20 million a year. Also, Patrick Mahomes is still alive. He is 18 wins away from moving into 3rd on the all-time wins list. And, Patrick Mahomes is still alive. If I were Andy Reid, I would actually probably coach until Patrick Mahomes retired, right? Or I guess if they miss the playoffs again next year somehow, then I might consider it. But he's got Patrick Mahomes. If Andy Reid continues to coach for the rest of Patrick Mahomes' career, he'll probably have the all-time wins record, right? So if I were Andy Reid, I would keep coaching with Patrick Mahomes because you're going to win a lot of games and you're probably going to win another Super Bowl if you continue to do so. So not too surprising there that Andy Reid is coming back. We'll see how Kansas City bounces back next year. Going to depend a lot on the health of Patrick Mahomes and how ready he is at the start of the year, or is this a into the new season type of injury recovery for Patrick Mahomes? But that is it for Bischoff's Briefs. A couple of notes before we get into the Golden Knights getting trounced by Minnesota last night. Trounced is that's not a word I use anywhere else except occasionally describing sports blowouts. That's not even a real word. I think we only use that to describe sports blowouts. But first off, going to have a show on Wednesday. I've got enough hot takes for you. No show Thursday and Friday, so 3 shows this week. But I will have one tomorrow on New Year's Eve for you. Also, gonna have a Patreon up this month. I know quite a few of you have asked me to get a Patreon up and running, so I'm gonna do that. It's gonna be a little bare bones to start, but we're gonna work on it and have some fun stuff for you guys through Patreon. So stay tuned for that a little bit later in the month of January. I said this month, it's not quite January yet. In January, we're gonna have that up and running. But the Golden Knights got trounced by the Minnesota Wild 5-2 last night, and that game was 5-0 in the second period. This was in no way a close game. And then Minnesota pulled away. No, it was 5-0 right away. Carter Hart was horrible, gave up 5 goals on 12 shots, and got pulled. And couldn't be better performance for me to go back to a question I asked before Christmas. Why are the Golden Knights so determined to make Carter Hart the number 1 goalie? He started the last 4 games for the Golden Knights, and he has started 9 of the 12 games since he was eligible to play. Right? Over the course of an 82-game season, that would be playing 62 games at that pace. Last year, the league high in games played for goalies was 63. And it was Hellebuck and Vasilevsky, like the best goalies in the league, right? Why are they giving Carter Hart so many games? They really, really want to make him the number 1 goalie. And here's the thing. Now, he has a worse save percentage and a worse goals saved above average than Akira Schmid. Both of these 2 goalies are probably league average goalies. There's no real reason for Carter Hart to be getting this much more playing time. He's played triple the amount of games as Akira Schmid since Carter Hart was eligible. He's not 3 times as good as Akira Schmid. I'm not even sure if he is better than Akira Schmid. And maybe the Golden Knights think Carter Hart has more potential than Akira Schmid, and if he gets a bunch of games, we're going to start to see that because it is still a small sample size. It's 9 games. But maybe they just think that he is better than Akira Schmid. He'll show that, and so they want him to take over because of that. But we haven't seen that on the ice. We haven't seen Carter Hart be better than Akira Schmid. His numbers are worse than Akira Schmid at this point. And based on his career, I know there was a really good year in there with Philadelphia. But based on his career, I don't think Carter Hart's a safe bet to be anything more than average. I think that's what he probably is as a goalie. And so here's my theory. I think the Golden Knights are playing Carter Hart so much because Kelly McCrimmon wants to prove a point. Kelly McCrimmon wants to say, I was right to sign Carter Hart. I'm the great general manager who made this risky signing, and it was worth it because he's our number 1 goalie. And he's going to come out when he finally gets asked about this and actually talks about it. He's going to come out and say, well, we got a number 1 goalie for $2 million a year, right? That's what we wanted. We did a great job in finding an asset that wasn't going to be very expensive. And as a general manager, that's my job, to make the team better. And so he really, really, really wants Carter Hart to be this number 1 goalie so he can show us all how smart he was and how any of the criticism the Golden Knights got for signing Carter Hart was worth it because he's good as a hockey player. And so they want him desperately to be the number 1 goalie. Is he better than Akira Schmid? Is he? I don't know. Through 9 games, he's not. Through 9 games, he's worse than Akira Schmid. What he did last night was horrible, right? And by the way, yeah, sure, the players in front of Akira Schmid were bad last night. The lineup is very, very bad. There were mistakes that led to those goals. But the Minnesota Wild had 1.15 expected goals with Carter Hart in the net last night. He gave up 5 goals. There were 12 shots on goal and 4 high danger chances. He gave up 5 goals. There was not some crazy onslaught like the Colorado game, the game before, where you're like, Colorado has 100 shot attempts. Colorado has 50 scoring chances across the game. No, Minnesota had barely gotten shots on net to Carter Hart, and he gave up 5. Yeah, hockey's dumb. There's screens, there's bounces and all that. But there is no reason that 5 goals should have been on the board for Minnesota across those 12 shots. Carter Hart had a bad night. Whatever excuses you want to make, no, he had a bad night. And there's no reason from what we've seen for the Golden Knights to treat him as we're going to give him 75% of the starts, other than the general manager really wants to prove a point that he was right to sign Carter Hart. Now, bigger issue for the Golden Knights is who's actually in the lineup. Bad news last night is that Tomas Hertl had to leave the game in the first period. They were already down 1-0 at the time, but he got called for boarding as a 5-minute major and a game misconduct. Losing Hertl meant the Golden Knights, their centers for last night were Mitch Marner, who's not a center, Colton Sissons, and Brett Howden. That's bad. Like, that is first-line winger having to play out of position, fourth line center incisions, and then Howden is a bottom 6 winger or center. Those were your 3 centers in last night's game. That's really bad. Now, the 1-game issue for Hertl, he'll be back. The good news is that Jack Eichel practiced yesterday. He wasn't a non-contact jersey, and he obviously didn't play last night, but he was back at practice. Wasn't ruled out for their game on Wednesday just yet. Non-contact jerseys usually mean you're close. It's probably fair to say he'll be back at least by this time next week, maybe even sooner. But Golden Knights should be getting Eichel back, which will do a lot, because right now the lineup is not good, especially at center. And Eichel's your best player, so obviously having him back does a lot, even if your center position was looking a lot better. But having him back at the very least means you don't have to play, Mitch Marner out of position. You can actually play 4 guys that are real centers in your lineup every night. And now it's, Eichel and Hertl is a good 1-2. Look better if it was Eichel, Hertl, Carlson instead of Eichel, Hertl, Carlson, Howden. But you're going to have a lot better lineup just with getting Eichel back. And it looks like that should be soon. Also, because I still can't believe this is happening, but I'm going to point this out periodically if it continues to happen. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and what it means is the Golden Knights this year have played 37 games. They've only won 17 of them. Now, 11 of the 20 losses are in overtime, so they get all these loser points, but this team has won 17 games and lost 20. And they have the 7th best record in the NHL. That's so stupid. Like, that is genuinely stupid. Like, the Golden Knights have lost 3 more games than they've won. Top 7 team in the league. Okay? It's so dumb. And part of it's because there's a lot of factors to this. Golden Knights are getting a lot of loser points. The Eastern Conference isn't that good. A lot of overtime games over there as well. But the Eastern Conference doesn't really have many good teams, and the West looks really top heavy. Like, right now, Colorado obviously at the very top. They have like 20 more points than Vegas. It's insane. But then Dallas and Minnesota are probably 2 and 3, and then Vegas is 4. They are on points percentage in the West, but then they're 4. Like, you probably think Edmonton's better, at least right now, what the Golden Knights are putting out there. But then once you get past that, like, depending on what you think of Anaheim, is there even a 7th team in the West? Like, it gets bad really quickly in the West. So there's not much in the West where it's like, all right, you're not going to catch Colorado, but if the Golden Knights have a good 2-week stretch, I mean, they'll be right there with Dallas and Minnesota for 2nd and 3rd. And there's just not a lot of really good teams at the top of the East. So it's just a weird year where it feels like we're all just watching Colorado just run through the league, and they're obviously going to win the Stanley Cup. But if it's not Colorado, then it's really weird because like Dallas is good, but they're not so dominant that they're obviously going to beat everybody else. And the rest of the league, it just seems like is a bunch of mediocre hockey teams. And the Golden Knights seem to fit right in there because, again, they've played 37 games and they've only won 17 of them. One last thing here on the Golden Knights. Gary Lawless works for the Golden Knights, is their team reporter. He comes on in the intermission on TV between the first and second periods of pretty much every Golden Knights game. And last night, he talked a little bit about Mitch Marner and how Mitch Marner basically looks good in Vegas. But he gave this quote. They, the Golden Knights, they didn't get Marner to ring up 100 points. They got him to help win hockey games. I don't understand what's going on here. Marner is on pace for under 90 points this year if he plays in 82 games, which is fine. 90 points is a good season. Mitch Marner is a good hockey player. But the Golden Knights signed Mitch Marner to an 8-year deal worth $12 million a year. He's one of the 5 highest paid players in the league this season. The Golden Knights absolutely signed him to put up 100 points. You don't get to sign a guy to one of the biggest deals in the NHL and then come back when he's underperforming and say, well, that's not the expectations. We were never expecting Mitch Marner to have a bunch of points. Yes, you were. That's why you signed him to that deal. That's why when they get him, they're like, oh, these types of players don't become available very often. It's because these types of players are supposed to be awesome, right? They're supposed to put up 100 points. I don't understand the backpedaling on expectations of Mitch Marner. He is supposed to be better than what he has been. He's been fine. He is not this huge disappointment that's bad, but he is supposed to be better than what he has been. And by the way, he's getting put into, not right now because he's playing out of position, but he's getting put into the best possible scenarios. He's getting the most offensive zone faceoffs on the team. He's getting to play on lines with other great offensive players. He's not being put into defensive scenarios. He's not being asked, like William Karlsson gets asked, go play on the third line with the guys that are struggling, right? No, he's getting to play with the Dorofeyev and Hurdle line, who's the all-offensive line. He's getting to play with Eichel, the best player on the team. And he's getting to play on the number 1 power play unit. And yet he's still underperforming his points for the season, and they absolutely assigned him to score 100 points. That is what happened here. And now we get this vague, well, he's doing well because he's here to help the Golden Knights win games. What games are they winning? They've lost more than they've won. Sure, if you want to go, oh, they signed him to pick up points in the regular season. Now we're getting even more vague. It's just, I don't understand why there's been this coddling of Mitch Marner. He hasn't been good enough. He has not been good enough this season for what the Golden Knights signed him. If the Golden Knights get 8 years of this, well, that'll be pretty impressive. To be honest, that'll actually be pretty good because that means when he's 35, he's putting up 90 points. But if the Golden Knights get the next 4 years and it's this, it's 87 points, he scores 17 goals every season, that's bad. That is bad. We're going to look back and say, why the hell did they give him $12 million? Right? Now, important note here. We're going to judge the team and all of the players on the playoff performance. If Mitch Marner scores 17 goals and has 87 points at the end of the regular season, that's not great. That's not what they signed him to do. But if what he does in the playoffs is what's going to determine that, right? He's probably going to have 80 to 90 points, which is solid. But in the playoffs, if we get Mitch Marner scores a bunch of goals or just produces a bunch of offense through goals and assists, and the Golden Knights make it to the Western Conference Final or further, we'll probably look back and say, all right, that was good. But if the Golden Knights get bounced in a playoff series and Mitch Marner doesn't have any goals, he's got 1 goal through 17 playoff games and 5 assists, that's how we're going to judge it at the end of the day. But I don't understand why through almost the midway point of the season, Mitch Marner has underperformed. And there's been so much coddling to say, no. Mitch Marner's fine. Mitch Marner's been great. He has not been good enough. Not at all. Not even close. And yet there's this weird coddling of we can't say bad things about Mitch Marner, or people are going to be angry, or Gary Lawless is going to come on and say, wait a minute, he's actually been great. I can't wait for Gary Lawless to tell us that Carter Hart's actually been great this year as well. But that is it for Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. Again, we got one more show this week tomorrow on New Year's Eve, so make sure you tune in because I got to yell about some stuff. I got some fun stuff to yell about, things that I am very passionate about in sports. Thanks for tuning in.